Hey everybody, Brian King here. Let's talk ADHD. There are a lot of theories about what it is, what it isn't, and a lot of these theories come from people that don't live with it. I heard an interview yesterday with a brilliant gentleman whose name I don't recall off the top of my head, but he's an education expert. And one of the things he theorized about ADHD is that it's a problem of too much attention, but on the wrong thing. And the example he gave was a kid sitting in the classroom thinking about what he's going to do at recess. Okay, that could be said of any bored kid who doesn't really care for what the teacher is teaching. So I disagree that it's a matter of too much attention on the wrong thing. I also disagree that ADHD is a matter of not being able to maintain enough attention on the right things. Because when you look at the positives of ADHD, you see a very creative mind that flits around as it's trying to make connections. And it tends to make connections with things in very unique ways. I mean, people with ADHD tend to have out of this world creativity and then have difficulty producing with it. In production, in the typical sense, is complete a paper in class or complete your homework assignment. A lot of the people that I see succeeding today with ADHD also have learned tremendous delegation skills. They're huge idea people, and they're able to think about these grand ideas, have these wonderful visions, and then put other people to work and say, all right, let's do this. Let's make it happen. You see a lot of these people as CEOs, managers, creative directors, movie directors, and the list goes on. Or it could just be somebody who's a carpenter, an ordinary Joe, writes poetry, writes little articles, but does so in a very creative, kind of scattered approach. But that's a longer conversation. What I have discovered ADHD to look like with all the clients I've worked with over the years, myself, my own brain being very, very scattered, and I have my own production issues as far as being able to narrow down what I want to act on so that I can make things happen throughout the day. So people that have ADHD and their brain seems to be flitting from one thing to the next at any given moment, what they have is not so much a focus issue, because each thing their brain goes to, they're able to focus for a certain amount of time until a shinier object comes along. So what it really boils down to is difficulty prioritizing which of all the shiny objects they're going to pay attention to. It's a prioritization issue. And how do you deal with this difficulty when you have a brain that tends to prioritize everything? Everything that's within its sensory sphere is a priority equally, until one of those things tends to raise its hand a little bit higher or raises its voice a little bit louder. Then it gets the attention until something else becomes louder. And one of the tools that I've learned is, first and foremost, because my motto is mindset before skill set. The first thing you need to understand about your brain's tendency to do this is that, hey, a squirrel just showed up, something shiny showed up. That does not require me to chase it. That's a belief that you must have, part of the way you perceive the way your mind works. A big part of mindset is having a relationship with your brain so that you can utilize it as opposed to your brain running the show and you just trying to keep up. And that's typically how people learn to relate to their brain. They learn to react to it as opposed to responding, observing, and deciding what it's going to act upon. I've spent 20 plus years learning mindfulness and meditation so I can watch my brain, see that it has a lot of squirrels that keep popping up, but knowing I don't have to chase it just because it's there. Doesn't mean it doesn't distract me. Distracts me all day long. But I can look at it and say, okay, that's a nice squirrel. I'm not going to chase it, and keep that power for myself. But here's the issue. When that squirrel gets my attention, I often forget what the heck I was working on. The thing that I prioritized, that I decided I wanted to work on. So what do? That's where some of the tools come in. the various lists, the various reminders that tell me where I left off. So the real trick here for many of us isn't increasing our ability to sustain our attention longer by drinking more caffeine, by taking more medications. The solution is typically having some kind of instrument that allows us to find our way back. That's the list. That's the workflow. That's the structure that we came up with, or somebody else helped us come up with, that allowed us to remember what we prioritized in the first place, so that when our creative scattered brain does what it does, gets distracted, we can find our way back. And we need to find our way back over and over and over again. And yeah, that can be tiring. But what's even more tiring is the frustration and anxiety we manufacture when we beat the crap out of ourselves because we got distracted. That's another mindset issue, where you can just learn to say, oh, well, there it goes again. What was I doing? Oh, okay. And it becomes more like play than it becomes about reason for criticism. So think about this stuff. This is really, really important stuff. Some of it may seem simple, subtle, and it is. Because changing your mindset in execution can look pretty effortless, pretty simple. But I understand getting there can be work. And that's why I emphasize it so much. It's not only work, but it's the most powerful attribute you have when it comes to managing your ADHD, and that is, how do you approach it? What's your relationship to it? Are you at war with it? Are you at war with yourself because your brain works in an unconventional way? Or do you live in that flow, that playful flow, where you can just go with it, but you have your tools to help you manage it as best you can? And at the end of the day, what you've had is a whole lot of play, as opposed to a whole lot of work, drudgery, and frustration. So take this, play with it, think about it. And if I can help you with the mindset piece, it's what I do. Just reach out. Because remember, I don't care how many skills you think you have, how many apps are on your phone, if you don't have the right mindset, a lot of that stuff's going to be useless to you. It's mindset before a skill set, my friend. So go have an awesome day. If you know other people in your life that can benefit from this, share and share away. They'll thank you for it. This has been Brian. We'll talk again soon.